So today I want to talk about lactic acid training and go over 3 dangers of doing too much of it. And the dangers are in terms of your your speed, your sports performance, and your performance on the track. So this is focused to sprinters. This is 400-meter runners should actually take heed of this because speed is king in all of those events, and you need to be able to. But what we want to do is go over 3 dangers with too much lactic acid training and too much excessive lactic acid training, because this can ruin your actual speed and your times. But lactic acid training, specifically for 400-meter runners, could be a contentious subject because a lot of people, coaches, athletes see it as a bedrock of speed endurance, and you need to be able to do it to get through 400 meters without slowing down quickly, making sure you can last 400 meters. But there's never any talk about the dangers of it, and a lot of athletes and coaches think more is better. It's the train hard philosophy. And as I say, there's a danger of doing too much of it, and it can ruin your performance. Now, there's a benefit to moderate amounts of lactic acid training, and you can get benefit from it and get the speed endurance and get the fitness that you need from it. But as I say, doing too much can be detrimental, and I want to go over that fact today. Now, so here's 3 reasons, dangers of lactic acid training. Number 1, it tightens you up. Now, how does it tighten you up? Well, if you can imagine most of the time you're doing training and it's speed endurance and you're doing it in a fatigue state, think about the kind of training that you're doing. And let's say you're a 400-meter runner and you're doing sessions of speed endurance that may be 10 200s. I've seen those kind of events. I think that's over the top, funnily enough, but 10 200s or even 5 200s. But you're doing, whatever the case, you're doing a block of training that adds up to a distance that's longer than your 400 meters. And the philosophy is that you can do that training session and actually perform in that training session, then you can do 400 meters and it will be a doddle for you, and you'll be able to last the 400 meters in 1 rep. And the philosophy is that you do that block of training to get that fitness up so you can do 1 rep as a doddle. It doesn't work like that. Each time you go through that session, as you progress through that speed endurance session, whether it's 10 200s or 5 200s, whatever the case is, each rep you do, you're getting more fatigued. And as you're getting more fatigued, you're getting tighter, because fatiguing is uncomfortable. And when you're fatigued and you're uncomfortable, you're going to tighten up. It's a simple thing, isn't it? And it's going to get worse as you go through the training session. So as you do that, you're actually imprinting in your running technique tightness, because you're getting used to it, that tightness. And as we know, if you're running tight, then that's not helping you. And this is something that really needs to be kind of considered, really, because as I'm reading a book called Quick and the Dead by Pavel Tsatsouline, and it goes into the dangers of lactic acid training. And he says, in this book here, it says, acid is the enemy of both tension and relaxation, drawing one into the stiff no man's land in between. It muffles the brain's commands to the muscles, inhibits all 3 energy systems, and interferes with the contraction and relaxation. Plenty of things to cover there, and it says it all really, but the enemy of both tension and relaxation, because when you're actually sprinting, you need to have the relaxation and the tension, the relaxation and the power, okay? And you need that dichotomy and that separation. Because of lactic acid training actually negates both of them, so you meet in the middle and it negates all of that. So you don't get the relaxation to generate the power, and there needs to be that. But lactic acid training, it generates that tightness that just pulls back your power and also your speed endurance. So if you don't get that relaxation, you don't have the conservation or energy conservation to have that, to make good use of that speed endurance. So it just nullifies both. And the other thing is, it muffles the brain's commands to the muscles. Really important. If your brain's commands are muffled, then your muscles are not going to contract as quickly. They're going to be weaker as well. And it's going to cause compensation patterns that could lead to injury as well later on. Plus stress levels that we're going to be talking about later lead to injury later on. So this is something that lactic acid training, extreme lactic acid training, contributes to. In so many ways, it causes tightness that actually disables your power and disables your speed endurance. So that's number one, it tightens you up. Number two, it ruins recovery. Now, my own experience of actually training, doing these speed endurance sessions, the lactic acid training sessions, I trained hard because I wanted to be the best I could be. I wanted to leave everything on the track, so I left no stone unturned in my fitness. But what I found out after these training sessions, particularly at night time, because that's the only time when I could really do the training was at night time, when going to bed that night, my sleep was always affected. And if sleep is affected after a training session like that, as tough as it was, you're not recovered. And the next day you're going to feel lethargic, you're going to be tired. And if you're training the next day, it's not going to be good. And that is overtraining. So what I found was actually those lactic acid training sessions raised your stress levels up post-session so much that you needed a long time for that relaxation to come by. Now, I didn't have the knowledge that I have now in terms of relaxation and the power of the breathing and stuff like that. I thought, I'll have a protein shake, I'll eat, and I should be fine. It never dawned on me at that time the stress levels that it brought it up to, that brought those lactic acid training sessions, it brought it up to. And once you actually have high stress levels, going to bed is going to be, you're not going to have good sleep. You need relaxation to go to bed with. But if you're actually got those stress levels that are sustained so long after a training session, that you're not recovering from that training session. And if you've got sleep, as I say, it's the number one recovery tool. If that's impeded, then you're not recovering for the next day. And if you have to train the next day, your training is going to be affected the next day. It, in some ways, it raises those stress levels so high that impedes recovery. And again, it's another aspect of overtraining that's going to lead to injury later on. And you're going to be stressed and you're not going to be able to perform that next day in training. When you have a lactic acid training session like that, I believe you need about 48 hours of active recovery afterwards. Think about it. We get fitter in between our training sessions, not in our training sessions. So we need recovery. So if you were to give yourself 48 hours recovery after it, why wouldn't you? If you've had a tough training session, you need to recover from that training session. And it doesn't mean sitting on your butt, but actually doing active recovery and not doing anything strenuous for the rest of the day. You're hardly going to get less fit, are you? But the problem is, and here's another thing that you have to worry about, is because athletes, it's inefficient to train in that way because you need that amount of recovery, so you can't get the amount of training you need. You might have to, you miss out 2 days of training, which obviously is not efficient use of your time as an athlete. But you have to admit that lactic acid training to that extent, when you put yourself on the floor, as I did, I was on the floor with lactic burning my hamstrings and my glutes and my quads after that training session. It took me a good 20 minutes to recover from that training session. You'd think that you need a lot of recovery after that. And if you're talking about, well, quality recovery, Andy, if you had quality recovery, yeah, but you can't. If you need to be almost know the techniques of getting into a relaxed state, and you can do it by using my program. It's the link below. That helps a lot. But why would you disable your chances of being recovery in the first place with a training session that causes so much damage, that tightens you up? So you have to understand that going to the extent of high levels of excessive lactic acid training can really raise your stress levels, make you tight at the same time. It's a lot of things to sacrifice there. So it ruins recovery. And the third thing I'm going to talk about is that it doesn't make you quicker. Now you're thinking like, I do it for endurance to last longer, not for speed. But if you let me talk about what happens to your body during a lactic acid training session, you might be thinking, is it worth it? Because if you go into the Quick and the Dead as well, Pavel Tsatsouline, this is a great book, by the way, that you should buy. I'll put a link below where you can buy it and actually look over it. But he talks about lactic acid training, but the byproducts that are generated, are produced through lactic acid training in your body are not good. In terms of, again, I'll go over that the lactic acid, small amounts of lactic acid can help cells renew, and you can get stronger with that, and you can recover from it. But if you have high lactic acid, excessive amounts can cause a lot of byproducts like ammonia, like free radicals, and both of those are toxic to the body in high levels and can cause cell damage, cell destruction, which is catabolic for the body. And when it's catabolic, what that means is it's muscle wastage. Anabolic is muscle building, you're getting stronger. Catabolic is muscle wastage, where it's actually muscle is wasting away. And when that happens, you generally get weaker. And if you get weaker, you're getting slower. Okay. Now, not only that, while you're doing lactic acid training, as you get more fatigued and you tighten up, your movement patterns are disrupted, and so is your coordination. So you're imprinting those movement patterns and training those movement patterns into you. Now, if you've got movement patterns disrupted and your coordination is disrupted, that's going to slow you down as well. And deficient movement patterns is not what you need. It's not going to make you quicker. It's going to make you slower. The thing is, when you actually do, what you want to do is train in a way that generates moderate amounts of lactic acid that doesn't have you on the floor at the end of a training session, where you've got high perceived rate of exertion when you're actually on the floor, lactic burning your legs, as it was with me. That's not what you need. You need moderate amounts where you feel puffed at the end of it, but you're easily recovering from it. And that's what you need to focus on your speed endurance sessions. And then spend the other days doing your speed work, where you actually getting quicker. That is quality training. When your movement patterns are not fatigued so much that your coordination's off, you need to be fresh to make sure that you're getting quicker. And you need coordination. Coordination needs to be spot on. You need to be training good coordination, and you need to be fresh to get quicker. So doing that kind of training with good rest in between is quality training. What speed lactic acid training, excessive lactic acid training, is trash training. It's tightening you up. It's impeding recovery. It's training bad movement patterns. And it's hampering your coordination. And it's making you catabolic and muscle ache. And with all those, it's making you slower. Now, I've seen it through a lot of athletes, particularly a couple of athletes that at school were lightning. They were doing really fast times. In under 50 seconds, we're talking about 47, 48 seconds for a 400. And they were fresh. So they weren't young athletes that were coming into the event fresh. And they hadn't done much training. And they covered the 400 meters in 48 seconds because they were fresh. Once they went away and did a couple of seasons they found out, obviously, they were talented at the event of 400 meters. And they went away. They came back slower. And they never could replicate the actual times that they did when they were fresh, in wet behind the ears, hadn't done much training. That freshness they had gone because it'd been trained out of them through too much training, too much lactic acid training, too much speed endurance. It happened a couple of times that I can go back and in my time as an athlete and noticing these athletes. Fresh at school, but once they went away to university and stuff like that, did all this training, they came back slower. And there may be a multiple of reasons why that was the case, but one of the big reasons possibly was the training was too much for them. It wasn't fresh. They weren't fresh as they did their training. They weren't recovering from each training session. And probably because they were doing too much of that lactic work anyway, because they thought more is better. That's the constant thing in sports performance. More is considered better. Particularly as more endurance is considered better. No, it's trash training. Too much of it is trash training. And trash training will make you slower. So there you have it, 3 ways in terms of actually how lactic acid is a danger. Moderate amounts, again, are good. Build it. But what you want is to actually instill a kind of a relaxed sprinting in you, relaxed techniques in your running. That will make you more energy conservation, which means that you're going to conserve more energy throughout the race, particularly if you're 200 meter runner, 400 meter runner, you'll slow down slower if you're relaxed before the race, and if you're relaxed in the first part of the race, you're going to slow down slower because you're more relaxed. That's an energy conservation. But your coordination is going to be better on relaxation as well. And that's another way in terms of actually you're going to be quicker, but you're also going to have more endurance as well. For me, relaxation is the bedrock of speed endurance, simply because you can't get any benefits of any speed endurance training you do unless you are relaxed. However much speed endurance training you do, if you can't run or run relaxed, you'll always slow down quicker than the opposition, or slow down quicker than you should. Relaxation is the bedrock of speed endurance. It has to be, because you cannot capitalize on that speed endurance training and fitness unless you're relaxed. So hopefully that video gives you a better understanding of lactic acid danger. Produce a little bit, but not too much. Manipulate your training so that you come off the track more fresh and less on your backside burning up. Okay? Leaves me to say thanks for watching. Please share, please share with your training colleagues if they would benefit from it, and share with other coaches as well. They might be open-minded to it. And thanks for watching.